Parents of my girlfriend transferred all the inheritance to me after finding out that their daughter is cheating on me. My spouse, Emily, 31, and I, 33, had been wed for a year when I recently initiated divorce proceedings after discovering her infidelity with a colleague. Surprisingly, it was her parents who disclosed her affair and urged me to proceed with the divorce swiftly. Emily is the only offspring of her affluent parents, who own a substantial healthcare company. We connected on a dating platform about 4 years ago, and our initial date was so successful that we continued our relationship from that point. After a year of cohabitation, I proposed, and we soon married. Her parents, George and Linda, always welcomed me warmly and seemed to genuinely appreciate me. Emily often jested that I was the son they never had, and it truly felt that way. From our first meeting, they treated me like family. Despite their considerable wealth, they remained down-to-earth and humble, which I greatly admired. My relationship with my own parents was strained. They remained together for my sake, despite constant arguments. There was no affection in our home, and family meals felt obligatory rather than enjoyable. In contrast, Emily's family was warm and inviting, making me feel like part of their circle. However, I never expected they would choose me over their own daughter in a serious matter. Now they wish to bestow $3 million of their estate upon me as compensation for Emily's betrayal. I am torn because despite my emotional distress, I feel that the inheritance rightfully belongs to Emily, and accepting it due to her infidelity feels morally questionable. Emily and I generally had a harmonious and affectionate relationship. We experienced minor disagreements, like any couple, but always managed to resolve them. When George and Linda invited me over to discuss something significant, I was shocked by their disclosure of Emily's affair with a new employee at her father's firm. They had observed her spending an excessive amount of time with this colleague, which aroused their suspicions. The fact that Emily's affair was with someone much younger than her, a recent college graduate who was barely 23, made the situation even stranger. While it was legally permissible, it was baffling that despite being happily married, she sought affection outside our marriage. Her parents had noticed their growing closeness and had even questioned Emily about it to keep things transparent. She reassured them that they were merely good friends with no inappropriate relationship, which temporarily eased their concerns. This situation troubled her parents not only because it jeopardized our marriage, but also because it exposed them to potential legal risks. Emily held a senior position compared to her affair partner, and if things soured, he could exploit the situation to sue the company. Despite her parents' repeated inquiries about the nature of their relationship, Emily insisted it was purely professional. However, her parents couldn't ignore the ongoing closeness between Emily and her colleague. They refrained from informing me initially, unsure if it was their place to intervene. Given the possibility of an innocent friendship, they hesitated. But soon, they felt compelled to take action and hired a private investigator to monitor Emily, a decision made easier by their financial stability. The detective uncovered that Emily frequently visited her affair partner after work. She would tell me she was out with friends or still at work, and I trusted her. However, her parents revealed that she consistently went to her partner's house after work and spent several hours there before returning home. It was clear to all of us that if she was lying to me, their relationship was far from innocent. When I discovered this, I was devastated. I deeply loved Emily and still harbored feelings for her despite her betrayal. Learning that she had been deceiving me for months broke my heart. This revelation occurred about 2 weeks ago, and the memory of that meeting with her parents still haunts me. They were visibly upset while breaking the news, but felt it was their duty since Emily would never come clean on her own. I was the first person they informed. I broke down in front of them, overwhelmed by the betrayal. Thankfully, they comforted me as if I were their own child, insisting it wasn't my fault. They acknowledged how well I had treated Emily and placed the blame squarely on her for not valuing the love she received from both me and her parents. She had thrown it all away for someone she had known for less than a year. Unable to face Emily that day, I stayed at her parents' house. They graciously allowed me to spend the night understanding my emotional turmoil. I was utterly shaken and cried throughout the night, grappling with the painful reality of her infidelity. Logically, I knew the next step was to file for divorce, but my heart wasn't ready to give up on her yet. The next morning, I decided to return home before Emily left for work. I hadn't answered any of her calls or texts the previous night, so she was surprised to see me in the morning just as she was about to leave. I was clearly in a terrible state, and she seemed concerned. I sat her down and asked her about the affair, as it was the most pressing issue on my mind. At first, she hesitated and tried to deny it, but I then showed her the pictures her parents had given me photos of her car parked outside her colleague's house on a night she had told me she was working late. She attempted to explain that they were just friends hanging out, but her lies couldn't hold up any longer. She finally admitted the truth: she had been cheating on me with him. The moment she confessed, I broke down completely. Hearing it directly from her shattered any hope I had that it might be a misunderstanding. I was hysterical, and though I can't recall everything I said, I remember a lot of yelling. Emily started crying and tried to explain that she had been stupid and lost sight of what was important because she felt a bit bored in our marriage. She insisted it was just a meaningless fling and that she never expected me to find out. Her excuses only made things worse. If the affair meant nothing to her, there was no justification for it. The fact that she destroyed our marriage because she was bored hit me hard. I screamed about how I had trusted her and been there for her, and she had thrown it all away for someone she barely knew. My rage made her dissolve into a puddle of tears, and at one point, she was on the floor, crying with her head in her hands, while I stood over her, yelling. It was a chaotic scene, and even now, thinking about that day makes me uncomfortable. Once the confrontation ended, I told her I was done and wanted her out of the house. Emily pleaded, saying she would end things with the other guy that very day and begged me to give our marriage another chance. But I told her that as long as she was around, all I could think about was her betrayal. I needed time to process everything, so I demanded she leave. She argued, insisting we could stay together and work things out, claiming it was the right thing to do. But I was struggling to even come to terms with her infidelity, let alone consider reconciliation. I needed space to think, and her presence was unbearable. I was disgusted and filled with resentment towards her, but she kept refusing to leave. Emily refused to leave, which left me incredibly frustrated. In response, I told her I would leave instead because I couldn't bear to be around her any longer. She was still distraught and insisted that I couldn't just walk out on her because she wanted to make amends and stay married, claiming it was a mistake I shouldn't end our marriage over. Without responding, I left, not bothering to pack anything, and drove aimlessly with no destination in mind. It wasn't until I was nearly out of gas that I realized I needed to find a place to stay. I drove to the nearest hotel and have been here since. Things between Emily and me have been far from great. Despite my efforts to move past what she did and forgive her, I just couldn't. Last week, after 3 days of deliberation, I finally filed for divorce. I haven't spoken to Emily since I left our home, even though she has repeatedly tried to contact me. The truth is, there is nothing left to say to her because her betrayal is something I can neither forgive nor forget. However, my in-laws have remained in touch with me, texting daily to check on my well-being. I've been in contact with them because when I reached out to my own parents for support, they were not helpful at all. They offered generic advice, telling me to do what I felt was right, which did nothing to comfort me. So I turned to my in-laws for emotional support. Although some might find it odd, I am very close to them, and it feels right. After filing for divorce and once Emily was served, she began texting me more frequently. I haven't opened any of her messages or read them, having muted her notifications, but the pain from her betrayal remains fresh. To make matters worse, I was struggling at work due to taking an unexplained leave of absence. Living in a hotel far from work made commuting impossible. With my paid leave almost exhausted, my employer warned me that I would be terminated if I didn't return to work soon. This added to my stress, given the significant expenses ahead due to the divorce and the need to find a new place and job. I shared my situation with my in-laws, not expecting them to help, but just needing to talk. To my surprise, they insisted on helping, saying that since Emily had put me in this predicament, they would find a solution. A few hours later, they told me to come to their house immediately because Emily was there, and they wanted us to discuss matters, particularly about who would stay in the house. Emily could live with them, but I needed my own place to maintain my job. I was hesitant at first because I really didn't want to face Emily again, but I knew I had to sort things out for the sake of my future. I didn't want to talk to Emily, but my in-laws persuaded me to come over and give it a chance because they didn't want me to lose my job over this situation. Reluctantly, I agreed and went to their house. Naturally, I was very nervous about seeing Emily after so long, but I didn't want to show it. For the first few minutes, we both avoided eye contact, and it wasn't until her parents began speaking that we addressed each other. My in-laws proposed that I take over the house because Emily could live with them, making it convenient since they all worked together. They were concerned that if I didn't get the house, I might lose my job. That's when something unexpected happened. Emily began arguing that she shouldn't have to make any sacrifices, claiming it was my fault we were getting divorced. She told her parents they should be supporting her instead of siding with a cheater. Her accusation left us all bewildered. Emily's tone was filled with indignation and conviction, so I thought she might have a valid point. However, she soon started spouting nonsense, attempting to make me look bad in front of her parents. It became clear she was lying about me right to their faces. Emily didn't know that her parents had been the ones to inform me about her affair. She probably assumed I had hired a detective myself. She fabricated a story about me having an affair with a mutual friend, producing edited photos that supposedly showed me being romantic with this friend. She claimed she had only started her affair as a reaction to finding out about mine and as a way to get revenge. Emily then demanded her parents cut ties with me, insisting they throw me out of the house. She believed I had manipulated them into supporting me and organizing this meeting. At that point, I knew she had just dug herself a deep hole. Her story was the worst move she could have made under the circumstances. Her mother immediately started yelling at her, saying she couldn't believe Emily thought they would be foolish enough to believe her lies and poorly edited pictures. Emily was clearly taken aback by her mother's reaction. It was obvious that her attempt to turn the situation in her favor had backfired spectacularly. This was not what Emily was expecting. Her parents told her they had hoped she would be honest after getting caught, but it was clear they had failed somewhere in raising her because she had turned into a deceitful cheater. Then came the big reveal. My in-laws finally told her that it was them who had informed me about the affair and given me the photos. There was no point in her lying anymore, as everyone knew the truth. The look on Emily's face was priceless. A huge argument ensued, as Emily felt betrayed and expressed her hatred for how they always treated me like their own son, but were willing to expose their own daughter. Her parents, naturally upset, lamented how she had turned out. They even called her foolish for not realizing that they were the ones who had told me about the affair, especially since they had confronted her about it multiple times. Emily admitted that the thought had crossed her mind, but she dismissed it because, at the end of the day, they were her parents, and she expected their loyalty no matter what. The argument continued until Emily stormed out, declaring that she was done with all of us and didn't want to speak to anyone. Despite her betrayal, I felt a bit of sympathy for her. Having your own parents side against you must sting. After things calmed down, my in-laws told me they had decided to change their will, making me the sole heir to their inheritance because they felt Emily didn't deserve it. They believed I was the more appropriate choice. This was a huge decision, and I felt uncomfortable accepting such a large amount of money, essentially taking it away from Emily. I told them I needed time to think about it, as this was a significant matter and I couldn't make a hasty decision. They agreed, saying I had all the time I needed, but days have passed and I'm still unsure if accepting the inheritance is the right thing to do. I know that Emily ruined our marriage by cheating, but the amount I would inherit is substantial, and I'm not sure if it's fair to take it from her. This dilemma is why I'm here, seeking advice on whether it's ethical to take away my soon-to-be ex-wife's inheritance worth $2 million. Update 1. Thank you all for the supportive comments and valuable advice. Emotionally, I'm holding up well by God's grace, and I've been discussing this with my friends. They believe I should accept the money because of how badly Emily treated me. They argue that if her parents want to rectify the situation by making me their heir, I should let them because I deserve it. They also reminded me that not only did Emily cheat, but she also tried to frame me as the cheater with those fake pictures. Her parents might have believed her if they didn't already know the truth. Emily would never stop at any length to absolve herself of any blame, so I don't need to go easy on her either. I think that's a fair assessment of her character, and I have made up my mind. I don't think I need to reject the inheritance because she didn't care about my feelings when she was out there cheating on me and throwing away our marriage for a guy she had barely known for a few months. There was no reason for me to overthink this. Besides, if she wants to be mad at anyone, it should be her parents, because I don't owe her anything anymore. Update 2. Today, I finally contacted my in-laws and told them I was ready to accept their terms. They seemed genuinely happy. They told me they were glad to have the opportunity to make things right because what Emily had done was seriously messed up. They also informed me that after the fight at their house, Emily had stopped speaking to them and blocked them everywhere. She had also submitted her 2 weeks' notice and stopped coming to work, as had her partner. I was shocked that Emily was willing to give up her job, especially since my father-in-law was grooming her to take over once he retired. Now he would have to find someone else for the role. It was astonishing that Emily loved her job so much, yet she was willing to throw it all away just because she felt she didn't deserve to be called out for her actions. I could hear the disappointment in my father-in-law's voice as he recounted these events. Despite everything, she was still their daughter and their only child. It was fascinating to see that for my in-laws, doing the right thing and standing firm on their principles was more important than pandering to their child's wishes. Very few parents would be willing to sacrifice their relationship with their only child to uphold their values. I tried to comfort them over the phone, but words felt insufficient. So I decided to visit them tomorrow to spend some time with them because I knew they must be feeling lonely and hurt. Update 3. It's been a few weeks since I left my house, and I've been living in a hotel since then. Unfortunately, I got fired from my job. The good news is that my father-in-law spoke to a friend of his and got me a much better job at his friend's company, so I guess all is well that ends well. The divorce proceedings have started, and things are quite tense whenever Emily and I meet with a mediator. It's very difficult for me to ignore her, but I have to. I know for a fact that she has already started dating the other guy and has even moved in with him, from what I've heard. I can't say that I'm surprised, but I am a little disappointed because I thought it would take more time for her to move on from me completely, given how long we had been together. Clearly, that meant nothing to her, so I'm going to make sure it means nothing to me either. Things with my in-laws are fine, though. We don't speak to Emily anymore, and neither does she. We try to avoid bringing her up because it's a sensitive topic for all of us. It's sad, but at least we are still a family. They haven't changed their will yet, but they plan to do so after the divorce is finalized and ensure that Emily does not find out about it until after they are gone. We try to meet each other often because we know that we are all going through the same thing and can only be there for each other. Hopefully, things will get better with time. Final update. It's been a couple of months since my last update, and I feel like I'm finally reaching a place of peace and closure. The divorce was finalized last week, and though the process was grueling, I'm relieved that it's over. Emily and I met for the last time during the final mediation session, and it was clear that we had both changed significantly since the beginning of this ordeal. We parted ways without any dramatic confrontations, just a mutual acknowledgement that our paths had diverged irreparably. George and Linda have continued to be pillars of support throughout this entire process. Their offer to join them on a trip to Europe was the escape we all needed. We spent 3 weeks exploring Italy, France, and Spain, immersing ourselves in the culture, food, and history. The trip was a wonderful distraction from all the recent turmoil and a perfect opportunity to bond further. It felt like a new beginning for all of us. Upon returning, I made the decision to buy a new home. George and Linda supported me both emotionally and financially in this endeavor, ensuring that I had a fresh start. The new house is a cozy place in a quiet neighborhood, far removed from the memories of my previous life with Emily. It's a place where I can build new memories and find solace. Jessica and I have continued to grow closer. We've been on several dates, and our connection feels genuine and promising. She's been incredibly understanding of my situation, giving me space when I need it and support when I seek it. I'm taking things slow, but I'm excited about the potential of this new relationship. Emily has attempted to reach out a few times since the divorce, but I've chosen to maintain my distance. George and Linda have also decided to keep their interactions with her minimal. They are still heartbroken over the situation but are focusing on their own healing. The process of amending their will has begun, and they've made it clear that they want me to inherit their estate. While this still feels overwhelming, I understand their reasons and am coming to terms with it. Looking back, the journey has been incredibly challenging, but it has also been a period of immense growth. I've learned the importance of self-respect, the value of true friendships, and the strength that comes from within. The love and support from George and Linda have been unwavering, and I'm grateful every day for having them in my life. Therapy has played a crucial role in helping me process my emotions and move forward. It has given me the tools to cope with the past and look forward to the future with hope and optimism. As I close this chapter of my life, I want to thank everyone who has followed my story and offered their support. Your encouragement and advice have been invaluable. I'm stepping into a new phase of my life with a sense of peace and hope, ready to embrace whatever comes next. This will be my final update. I'm focusing on living my life fully, nurturing my relationships, and continuing my journey of healing and growth. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Here's to new beginnings and a brighter future.